statement with profound sorrow and grave concern regarding the tragic death of 18 women and girls who lost their lives in a catastrophic road accident on June 27, 2025. They were aged between 14 and 20, and they were students from socioeconomically marginalized families. At the time of the incident, they were engaged in seasonal agricultural labor, earning less than $3 per day, below the unenforced minimum wage. This tragedy underscores significant and alarming disconnect between policy commitments and implementation. These young victims were neither protected by adequate road safety measures nor given their basic labor rights. And this incident is not isolated, but emblematic of broader systematic state neglect, particularly towards women and girls from rural and marginalized communities in Egypt. In its submission to the 48th session of the UPR, the government of Egypt outlined various national strategies, including the 2022 launch of a national plan for gender equality in employment, which purported to reduce women in employment by 2% annually. Authorities also cited efforts to formalize and regulate domestic work. However, these promises stand in stark contrast with the lived experiences of women and girls, particularly those who are in the informal sector. The year 2025 has marked a significant setback in the advancement of gender equality in Egypt. According to the Global Gender Gap Report of 2025, Egypt ranks in the 10 lowest performing nations globally. This represents a further decline from its 135th position in 2024. The gender gap closure rate in Egypt has fallen to 62.5%, well below the global average of 68.8%. And all of this reflects a worsening trend in women's economic participation and political representation. And despite repeated assertions of commitments to gender equality and elimination of violence against women and girls, the Egyptian state has merely noted, rather than supported, a significant amount of critical recommendations during the fourth UPR cycle. To name a few, there was 3 recommendations calling for the ratification of international instruments such as the ILO Convention 190, recommendations urging the protection of freedom of expression, particularly for HRDs, recommendations calling for the reform of the discriminatory personal status law related to marriage, divorce, custody, and adoption of preventive measures to address gender-based violence. Also, recommendations to criminalize all forms of violence against women, including the so-called honor killings and harmful practices such as the virginity and the anal testing. And also, recommendations calling for the decriminalization of individuals based on their sexual orientation. Egyptian feminist movements, comprising of independent activists, civil society organizations, and grassroots initiatives, have consistently championed the enactment of a comprehensive law on gender-based violence. A task force of 5 feminist organizations, in collaboration with 2 women members of the parliament, submitted a bill during 2 consecutive parliamentary sessions, and to date, the bill has not been included on the agenda. Similarly, sustained demands for new rights-based personal status law that guarantees equality in marriage, divorce, custody, and inheritance, free from patriarchal legal provisions, have not yielded any results. Despite multiple proposals submitted by various institutions, including Al-Azhar, the National Commission of Women, and members of parliament. A ministerial decree in 2022 established a 10-member committee to draft a new law within 4 months. Until today, the content and the status of this law remains unknown. It is particularly concerning that the state has merely noted 8 recommendations explicitly urging the adoption of effective legislation on gender-based violence and personal status reform. This includes the criminalization of all forms of gender-based violence, including marital rape and the so-called honor killings. Data from national surveys show that nearly 1/3 of women aged 14 to 49 in Egypt have experienced spousal violence, and 6% of these cases are sexual in nature. Femicide cases are reportedly increasing, often justified under the guise of honor, a crime that the Egyptian state denied its existence in the Egyptian law and claims to have taken measures against it. And in contrast to this reality, the state's comment on the UPR recommendations paint a very different picture, as the comments repeatedly referred to recommendations as already implemented. Despite constitutional guarantees of equality and protection from discrimination, women and gender diverse individuals in Egypt continue to face structural barriers and violence. The gender-based violence is widespread and underreported. The women's participation in Egypt remains among the lowest globally. There's still structural challenges for women and gender diverse people. And we still call upon the government of Egypt to urgently address this situation and the worsening gender equality crisis. And we also rely on you to continue pressuring for more equality in Egypt for women and girls.